Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about the Siren song of innovation, that irresistible pull towards progress. And we're asking a tough question. What happens when we follow it without ever looking back?
So let's just ask the big question right up front. Is progress always a good thing? We're constantly surrounded by the allure of the new and improved. Every new gadget, every AI breakthrough is presented as another step forward for all of humanity. But is it really that simple? All right, to really get into this, let's rewind a bit. Let's talk about the grand promise of technological progress. And honestly, there's no better example than the space age. This whole era was just fueled by this incredible optimism, a belief that technology wasn't just solving problems, it was actually elevating us as a species. I mean, listen to this quote. It really sums up the whole feeling back then, right? The idea was that going to space wasn't just a practical, scientific thing. No, it was our destiny. It wasn't just about building a better tool. It was about fulfilling some kind of higher cosmic purpose. And boy, did things move fast. This timeline is kind of wild when you think about it. After World War I, rockets were basically a joke, a little side issue while everyone was obsessed with airplanes. But then, boom. After World War II, the V-2 rocket comes along and shows the world this incredible power, and suddenly everyone's imagination is on fire. By 1957, with Sputnik launching, it wasn't a scientific dream anymore. It was a full-blown political race. Technological might became the ultimate measure of a nation's greatness. But, while we were all looking up at the stars, what was happening down here on Earth? This comment from some random person on social media kind of says it all, doesn't it? There's this real nostalgia, this feeling that our focus has shifted from the cosmos to our screens. And there's a real worry that in our rush to move forward, we've actually lost something important along the way. So that brings us to our first big topic, the real weight of all this connectivity. We're going to look at the personal cost, the hidden burden of being always on. Because it seems like for every promise of connection, there's a price to pay. And yeah, that cost, it's not just a feeling anymore. It's really showing up in the numbers. Get this. 68% of young people say their attention spans are shrinking. That's more than 2/3 of an entire generation feeling like they literally can't focus on something for more than a minute. That's a huge deal. And it gets even deeper than that. A full third of users describe their inability to stop scrolling as, and this is their word, an addiction. That's not just saying it's a bad habit. That's incredibly powerful language to use about your relationship with a device. Yeah, and just listen to the words teens are using for their own brains. Monkey-minded, popcorn thinkers. It just paints such a clear picture, right? This feeling of constantly, frantically bouncing from one thought to the next. It shows you what this cognitive burnout actually feels like from the inside. Okay, so the cost is personal, for sure. But it doesn't stop with us as individuals. We're also seeing what you might call a progress paradox, a situation where the very technology that's supposed to bring us all together actually ends up pushing us further apart and deepening those old divides. And here's where it gets really complicated. There's this massive debate going on. Does tech help or hurt wage inequality? On one side, you have this de-skilling hypothesis, which basically says new tech creates a bunch of low-skilled jobs and replaces the better-paying ones. But then there's a totally opposite point of view. Some argue tech gets rid of the menial work and creates fewer but much more skilled and high-paying jobs. The fact that experts can't even agree on something so fundamental, well, that tells you a lot. And if you want to see that digital divide in action, just look at this table. It's pretty stark. When you look at who's actually going online for really important stuff, like information on health or politics, there's a clear link to income. The better off you are, the more likely you are to be using these tools to your advantage. And it's not just about money either. Race is a factor, even when you account for different incomes. Age is a huge one. Internet use just plummets after age 55. And then there's the quality of the access itself. Just having internet isn't the same as having high-speed internet that lets you actually do things. All these little gaps add up and leave people behind. So with all these costs piling up, both for us personally and for society at large, it's really no surprise that a kind of counter-movement is starting to bubble up. It's all about people trying to find some agency, some control in this crazy, hyper-connected world. And let's be clear, this isn't about, throwing your smartphone in a river. It's a philosophy called digital minimalism, and the whole idea is to be super intentional. You figure out what you really value in life.
And then you only use the technology that actually supports those things. Everything else, you just happily let it go. And you know what's driving this? It's something really human. It's straight up emotional exhaustion. It's a desire to be able to think clearly again, to get rid of that mental fog, and it's a search for something real, something authentic, in a world that feels so saturated with digital noise. So all of this really pushes us toward a bigger idea, doesn't it? Maybe we need to start redefining what we even mean by the word forward. If the old definition of progress isn't working for a lot of people, maybe it's time for an update. Which leads to this really fundamental question. What actually defines forward versus backwards? I mean, seriously, think about it. If moving forward just leads to more burnout and more inequality, is that really the direction we want to be going in? Maybe there's a better way to think about all this. Instead of just labeling tech as good or bad, what if we thought about it in terms of danger and release? The example here is perfect. Antibiotics are amazing, right? They release us from the danger of infections. But at the exact same time, they create a brand new danger, the superbug. It's always a trade-off. So what's the takeaway? How do we move forward in a smarter way? Well, it looks kind of like a four-step process. First, you have to acknowledge the cost. Really pay attention to that feeling of burnout. Second, seek clarity. Start questioning why things are the way they are. Third, embrace simplicity and focus on the tech that really aligns with your values. And finally, see disconnecting as a powerful choice, not as a loss. So in the end, this all really comes back to you. The big question we're left with is a personal one. When you look at your own life, where does technology offer you that sense of release? And where does it present a new danger? How are you going to navigate that balance?